give us the grand tour of Coconut?
Sure, Bridie. Well, Coconut's a Lello 34 and we've had it for a year, and the first thing we did was a lot of substantial work down below. And my pride and joy, you can see here, is my watertight door here. I just remove the table so we can get to it, and that drops down here. But this watertight door in the watertight bulkhead takes us through to the forward cabin, and up in the forward cabin we've got sails and heads and just some storage, some bilge pumps and things up there. But it's a bit of a mess and it's pretty crowded. There's a crash bulkhead up forward and there's an ocean rated hatch. But basically we can secure this, which divides the boat up into two watertight sections. So if we get flooded, it means that we can, it'll buy a bit of time, so we can divide the boat into two and then tackle the problem and pump out what needs to be done. The other thing that we did when we got the boat is we put in hanging knees, and hanging knees are these things up here, and we've got 3 sets of them going further aft. And what they do is they provide strength between the cabin sides and the deck head, and this one comes all the way down here, and the deck and the hull. So what it means, if you get slammed down by a wave, this join here is quite vulnerable, and boats often split along that line in heavy weather. And these hanging knees, what they do is they transfer the load from one side of the boat to the other, so it strengthens it up. We've got polycarbonate windows here, so these are new strong windows, so they're designed to take a fair bit of loading. We've put new chain plates in on the hull up through here, and we also thickened up the hull here with an extra 22 layers of fiberglass. So the hull was about 10 centimetres thick. We made it 20 centimetres thick and built new chain plates that came all the way down nice and low, and we've bolted them on. So that provides a bit more support. Up in here, I can show you this. This is our battery box. And it is quite high. People do comment on that. And it's kept quite high in order to keep the batteries out of the water. So we've got 2 main bilge pumps in here and one up forward, and these batteries will work even if the boat's flooded, and we can pump it out. Certainly, there's been some comments about these ties here and whether they're secure enough. But what we can do is we can get some metal straps and strap each battery down independently, as well as these. But you can see all the wiring here. We've got supplies here for the HF receiver and HF transceiver. We've got a 24-hour supply here for bilge pumps, and then positive bus and negative buses over the other way. So it's quite nicely organised. And we've got the power supply for the HF transceiver there. So we can put on radios, that's pretty easily, and we've got a radio right here, and you can see there's an HF radio. It's currently tuned just to a local radio station, but that gives us the ability to get weather forecasts and things like that, as well as the full HF. So I'll just come further aft here. So we've got our nav area here, which is where we'll do our chart work from. And over here, we've got our switchboard, which everything's been rewired, and we've got all our breakers here. It's just being rewired slightly. This is our HF transceiver, so we can turn this guy on here, and this is the one we transmit on. So we'll get up to it goes from 3 to 60 megahertz. So it's 2 to 60 megahertz actually, so it covers all the HF bands. So that's my main means of communication. I've got VHF here, so I can turn that guy on. There's a VHF breaker here, I've still got to get used to it. There's the VHF breaker there, and there's our VHF, and that's scanning there. I can actually have that transmitting from the top of the mast, which it currently is. I've got a changeover switch here, or I can switch it back to the aft rail, so I've got a redundant antenna down on the aft rail. This is just the engine monitoring that we recently put in. I can now turn that off because that's the ignition off there, so we can get rid of that. This is the... Oh, we'll just get, that's the tugs moving the ship that just came in, so we'll turn him off. Turn off the HF here. This is the speaker for the new HF. Basically, I've just got to put some beading in there to hold that in. Basically, the changeover switch for the VHF has a little angled joiner here and won't allow this one to go in there, so we'll just have to sit him proud like that. So that's a little job still to be done. We've got a few outlets here and bits and pieces, and that's basically this side. And then we've got the engine under here. Basically, all the bits and pieces are there. She's a Ferryman 32 horsepower engine, trusty crank handle here, so we can crank it as well as turning it over with the batteries. She's an old engine, and the compression isn't too good at the moment, so we're looking at replacing the rings to see if that will improve the compression. But she gets us in and out. She just needs a little bit of ether in the air intake to turn it over on a cold day. Over on the other side here, we've got our sink and galley, and this is all pretty well in original condition. We haven't really got around to doing too much here, and I don't think we'll get around to doing too much here. So she's pretty simple, and with a year's supply of tinned and dried food, a trusty metho stove, which is a bit dusty because we've been doing some sanding and painting in here, so it needs to be tidied up a bit. But I'll have to work out how much metho that I use. Probably a litre a week maybe, so I need 50 odd litres of metho, something like that. I'll work that out. And so we've got a water tank down in the keel, water tank down on the side here, and we'll also have some other little tanks. We can actually have a look in the water tank here. So she's down in there, and it was a bit grubby with algae and things, but I've worked hard to try and clean it up, and we can get access to him, and I'll illuminate it there, but you can actually see she's now nice and clean down there, which is a great joy that I'm going to have sweet fresh water. There's 200 litres there, and there's 100 litres in the tank on the starboard side. Put him back. We've got some changeover switches here between the two water tanks. These are for bilge pumps. I can just show you the other bilge pump is just under here, excuse me, and we open this up. So we've got the top of the water tank here, and then the bilge pump is, the after bilge pump is in here. And you can see there's a big bilge pump in there, so that's a bilge pump plus a 24-hour float switch. And you can see there he is, that's how that guy operates. So we got this guy here, one further forward and one up in the forward cabin. I've got a little one actually right in the bottom of the bilge just to get down the bottom there, and we've got two manual ones as well as that. So there's actually 6 bilge pumps. We can have a slightly better look at the engine if this all comes apart for ease of access. So there's the engine there, so we can get to her easily enough. One cylinder here, one cylinder there. There's the air intake here, the air intake here. Alternator, water pump. There's our fuel coming in here through our secondary fuel filter, primary fuel filter here. Oil filters down the bottom somewhere. Yeah, simple engine. Slow and steady, but she does the job. She's original. We've just put a new water pump in here, basically, and the new water lines, so they're all new. Other than that, she's pretty original down in this part of the world. Up the back there, we've got a new fuel tank as well. Basically, it's a bit hard to see because it's dark. So we've got a new fuel tank, 140 litres. These here are old bilge pump lines. I've just blanked them off. They're going to have to be removed. Basically, all the previous bilge pumps pumped into the cockpit. That's not allowed under the Golden Globe rules. So I've got them now pumping on the outboard side of the coaming on the upper deck. And we're just going to blank these off. So basically, if your cockpit's full of water, it means you can still pump out, as opposed to if you pump it in the cockpit, it'll just come straight back in. So that's her really. She's a simple little boat, and nothing's really much changed in the last 50 years. And probably sailing 50 years ago is probably more similar to Cook and Flinders than it is to today. So we're really going back in time with chronometers and trailing logs and sextants. I can show you my Walker trailing log as well. It's just I'll have to squeeze back around again, sorry. And it is up in here. We actually are going to replace these bunks with something a little more comfortable because these are a bit worn out, and we'll also put higher lee cloths in because these aren't really quite high enough to keep me in the bunk in heavy seas. For the Walker trailing log, I think she's in here. This is my wind vane here. The paddle for that, we're building another 10 of these because they will break eventually when in high winds. And maybe in here. Right, and here's my Walker trailing log. I'll just bring him out.
Can you pop it on the table?
Yeah, sure. And so he is basically another great work of art, almost from antiquity. So the Knotmaster log, so she's in pretty good nick. So she's got all the bits and pieces. I got it from the Marine Bazaar in Plymouth. And this is the attachment that it goes on. And that basically sits on the taffrail and just measures the distance covered. And on the end of this piece of string here, we've got an impeller that trails in the water. And so that follows as trails. There's a weight on the line to keep it in the water. Here we go. You have to unscramble all that lot, and she follows and spins and drives this spindle at the back of the log. There we go, there. And that will turn and do this. So she's pretty retro, and you can see it just reads off in nautical miles. So we've got nautical miles here, and what have we got here? Decimals there, and it goes to 100, and this goes to thousands here. So that's it. Pretty simple stuff, and we've got a couple of spare impellers for it, which will keep us out of trouble. Unfortunately, fish tend to find them attractive, sometimes large fish. So you can never catch a fish when you want one, but they'll certainly eat your Walker trailing log impeller. That seems to be the rule, which is a little unfortunate. So we've got some spares.
I just noticed the books that you have on board behind you. They seem quite interesting.
Yeah, well, I'm starting to collect a few down here. We've got A Voyage for Madmen, and basically that's probably pretty correct. It's a book by Peter Nichols. It's about the original race in 1968-69 and the characters in it. Knox-Johnston here, Bernard Matessia here, and Crowhurst here. Dennis Crowhurst, and in fact there's a movie coming out quite soon with Colin Firth playing Crowhurst.
Yeah, I've heard about that one.
Yeah. So
what's this second novel here?
and this one's Bernard Matessia, The Long Way. So this chap here actually didn't complete the race. He just kept sailing. So he did 1.5 laps of the world and went to all the way to Tahiti. So so he obviously found it a very peaceful existence and didn't really want to return. So that's there. We've also got, so I've got a few bits and pieces, emergency VHF aerial here to plug into the back in case we need it. Bolt cutters here in case the mast falls down. We give ourselves something to cut some of the Dyneema, sorry, not Dyneema, the hammer rigging that's there. We've also got, I'm pleased to be able to show you, sorry I've squeezed back here again, is I just got our, here we go, our radio license here. from the ACMA. And so we go, here's coconut, and here's our new call sign, Victor November Zulu 2428. So look out for coconut, Victor November Zulu 2428. So I'll plasticise that so she's on board. So that's a pretty important piece of information. As is this one over here, which is Coconut's official registration as an Australian ship. 10.36 metres, so she's a little one. Well, I think that's about it, Bridie. Oh, this one here got a bit mangled. This is our special code that's affixed to the boat that sort of was on the transom, and it got mangled when we put the new chain plates on the transom. So I saved that. It needs to be reattached because it's like your number plate, but it's suffered a little bit. So I just hang it on here at the moment. And my little spare tranny, and trannies are good, so we just have that for save power on the other stuff and for a bit of entertainment. So that's about it. That's Coconut in a nutshell. Oh, now I forgot to mention these lights here have quite a good, nice little feature, so that at night we can turn them over to red. And the beauty with that is it saves your night vision. So it means your eyes can be accustomed to the night light, and so you don't lose that when you're down below doing chart work and cooking and doing whatever you're doing. There's also one up in the doghouse, but that's also able to go white and red, so it means on the upper deck you don't get too startled by the white light. That's it really. So a few cosmetics to be done. Obviously, you can see the paint's a bit rough still, and obviously some of the soft furnishings haven't been need to be replaced and tidied up a little bit. I probably need something on the floor to cover up these hatches. So I might put some sort of deck carpet down there just to soften it a little bit. But substantially, she's there, and the next plan is to take her for a bit of a run. I'm trying to get some leave from work because I'm still working full time, and if I can get a week off, I was thinking of maybe running down to Hobart or something like that, giving it a bit of a test. And if I don't get a second week, I could just leave it there and then fly back and bring it back. So a week down and a week back would certainly be a good little test, and then really work on her until November when she gets shipped over. That's my preparation. Okay, thanks, Bridie. Bye.